What's up, guys? How's everybody doing? Let me get this tweet out real quick again, as always. Gotta let people know. All right, got the tweet out. Let me share the link in TrueTrader. All right, what's up, everybody? Oh, once again, the Chiefs game is going during the Sunday prep, so got the score here. As you can see, this should be an easy game for us. Last week, I was not too happy with the outcome. I absolutely hate Burrows and the Bengals, but I shouldn't get so political, right? Is everybody enjoying their weekend? We've had a very busy weekend at my house. We spent almost the whole day yesterday at SeaWorld, and then, you know, it's that time of year too where just everything that's holiday related all seems to just come crashing down at once, with getting gifts and wrapping things and running kids places. We had an ugly Christmas sweater party at the ice rink on Friday evening. That was fun. What's up, Raul? What's up, Cruz? At SeaWorld? Ouch. That's harsh, man. Actually, we did not saw some pilot whales. Didn't see any orcas. Did see the dolphin show, and they had like the dolphin show was a Christmas special one, so that was really good. That was pretty awesome. Kids enjoyed it. We had a good time. But yeah, that's correct, KH. But it's weekends like that, right, where everything is jam packed, that make putting this thing together a bit of a tightrope act between getting all the names together and the ideas and clearing the schedule enough to try to make it happen. Yeah, thanks for that, Cruz, and I appreciate that. If anybody can hit the like button and maybe retweet the tweet I put out, or share that on Instagram or Facebook or wherever you guys have peers of yours that may be interested in the markets. We'll get started here in just a minute. It's going to be an interesting week. I mean, there's almost no way that it won't be. Too many important numbers coming out. If you guys see me looking over to the side, I have the game on one of my screens. And I'm trying not to watch it. This isn't that, I mean, this should be a pretty easy win for us, but you guys got big plans for the holidays? Is everybody spending time with their families and stuff, or are you guys rolling solo? What's everybody doing? And I'm actually really happy we got the SeaWorld thing done yesterday, because today is rain. And sunny San Diego is not sunny today. I have yet to even be able to walk my dog yet. And I know he's getting antsy. What's up, Josh? Hey, what's up, Hi Mark? Nice to see you in here, man. All right, well, it's 5 p.m. market time, so let's get this show on the road. Guys, as always, if you don't have a broker you can trust, check out Cobra. Hands down, my favorite broker. There's a link in the description. You're going to get 25% off the commissions, and you also get a free month free of whatever platform you choose. Spike Heat, if you don't know about them, they create a software that allows you to pull historical tick data on stocks, like up to, I think, 20 plus years of data, which allows you to prove or disprove whether there's a statistical edge that you think you may be seeing in the market, something that you can exploit for your own benefit. I used to do this manually. The ability to use software nowadays to cut that, what used to take months and months and months and was very tedious, into something that can take as little as 15 minutes is incredible. There's a link in the description for them as well. Scripts to Trade, these guys make tools for Thinkorswim and TradingView. Amazing tools. Some of the most powerful tools I've actually ever used. And if you look at the tools they have and they don't have something that your mind has kind of come up with that you think you would like, reach out to them. They'll work with you, and you can work with them to develop that exact tool for yourself. They're amazing, and I can't speak highly enough about them. TraderView, I use these guys to track my performance metrics. I say this every week. If you're not tracking your performance metrics, I don't know what the hell you're even doing trading, right? You can't manage what you don't measure. So check them out. There's a link in the description for them as well. There is some earnings this week, not a ton. Oracle and Adobe and Coupa, I believe, is on there, right? Coupa. And Coupa, keep in mind, they've got headline risk already with rumors of a buyout. So it should be some exciting trades based on Oracle, right? I love Oracle. I trade Oracle a lot, even when it's not earnings. If they have, they always have liquidity, they always have range, but it's always heightened once they have the catalyst of their earnings report. All right, so we're gonna just jump straight into things. Oh, and guys, I always talk highly of these companies that I personally use because I believe in them, right? And I feel so silly for waiting to the end of a Sunday prep to talk about TrueTrader. Guys, if you are not part of TrueTrader, I really feel like you're missing out. The value that's provided over there at TrueTrader.net is second to none. My mentors are over there. There's a bunch of other great traders as well. We have an options room. There's literally, there's a 5-day $30 trial. So I don't understand why you wouldn't at least give it a shot. But there is there's an annual package you can pay. You can do month to month. If you get value from what we're putting out free on Sundays, you're going to be blown away by the value you get if you sign up for TrueTrader and actually come over to the community. So I wanted to put that out there before I get into the Sunday prep instead of putting it at the end, because that really feels kind of stupid to do that. All right. So as always, neither I, TrueTrader, or any of our affiliates are registered as security broker dealers. I'm not a licensed financial advisor. Nothing I talk about is a solicitation to buy or sell any stocks. It's simply for entertainment purposes only. All right, so here's your ES chart. Let me move some things off my screen as always, just so I can see what I'm doing here. 1 second, guys. All right, so let's jump into the monthly real quick. We're about halfway through December. Well, yeah, give or take, right? So it's not gonna happen in the next few weeks where we have the ability to try to probe below the monthly candle, right? We need December's candle to close first, and then in January we can try to break December's low. So we don't have anything to really worry about in the realm of what's developing on the monthly chart, but we definitely have stuffed into that resistance area, and so far it's retraced quite a bit since that push up into that. It's the only really major thing to note on the monthly at the moment. As far as the weekly is concerned, we actually talked about last week the fact that I thought there is a chance, I think everybody expects this to just reject here, and there's a chance people get off sides, and we actually come a bit further up. It didn't happen. Make sure you guys understand when I talk about these scenarios that could happen, they're if-then statements, right? So if we don't push above those levels, there's no place for those, right? It's just me being prepared for that contingency. And so far, we never broke above those levels. We just had a big retrace. As far as what I think could happen or what would need to happen on the weekly time frames, to set up what we consider that short continuation trigger, basically a continuation of the weekly downtrend. Is I would actually think that this coming week we would pull back more. I think there'd be some more downside, which then sets us up for the following week after that, where we could try to push up, and that push up would be where I would look to see if that lower high is put in. I mean, you can literally look back to August to see exactly what I'm trying to envision that hasn't happened yet, right? And that is this push up. When we start to pull back, we need to have some substantial pullback so that when we do push up, we start to get those weekly candles that break the highs of the previous week. We could technically have that happen here, right? We could have this current week, we could push up and break last week's highs. But it's just a really tight little area in there where if we do break it, it may just end up being where we push up, break, and then break the week prior to that's highs as well. And all that is just a continuation higher, okay? It's not, in my opinion, that's still just the first push into the weekly 20 until we get, remember, we talked about this, the last major high where we pivoted and came lower was here, okay? So as long as we're below that, this can still end up being a lower high in the bigger picture. So what I'm trying to, let's see. Whoops. What did I just get rid of? I didn't want to do that. There we go. What I am trying to think will happen, or what I do think will happen, or what I'd like to see happen, which would be setting up for a textbook style continuation lower, would be to come lower next week, or this coming week, right? And then the following week after that, have this push up, which would break this current week's highs and put in another lower high, right? And then you would have the push up, the intermediate lower high, and then the break, and that could send us lower. That would be how the trend would continue to hold down. And I'm not trying to say that it will, right? Remember, what we've been talking about for the last few weeks is the possibility of range contraction, right? We've talked about the fact that, like, on these monthly candles, these are all very wide ranging candles. It's not a lot of narrow price action. And when we have big moves up or down, eventually things have to consolidate. Eventually things need to build bases. Eventually moves need to be digested. It's just part of the way price action develops and unfolds. And we haven't had that yet. So it makes a lot of sense that at some point, and I don't know when it will be, but at some point that we will start to see the price contract, and we'll build a consolidation area which will make a nice base for us to either launch higher or lower. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen here, but I am thinking that this is an area that makes a lot of sense to see it happen. We've come way down into some good support levels. We've seen the support act as support, right? Remember, it's one thing to identify a level that can be support. It's another thing to see it eventually play out and act as support. And we have seen that. So now the question becomes, do we kind of just have a ceiling and a floor and kind of start to narrow that range? So even if we set up what I just kind of explained to you guys, where we come lower, put in that lower high on the following week's push up, and then trigger to the downside, all that means is that now I'm watching to see, do we get follow through to the downside, or do we end up putting in a higher low, which would, to me, signal maybe we are going to see some of that base being built, some of that consolidation and price contraction. All right, let's get into the daily. Okay, so on the daily, you can see we really did hold these levels pretty well that mattered, right? So even though things got pretty dicey there, I mean, we came in pretty hard for 2 days straight was really hard. Then we had a really narrow day, and then we tried to push up, and now we're kind of stuffing again. What I'm looking for this week is, does this turn? This is going to look, hopefully, and if this kind of confuses you, just rewind this later and watch what I just showed you about the weekly chart and just envision it being the daily, because this should look very similar, right? That's the push up. Now we have the pullback, a possible lower high here. And if we break these levels, then we should have some downside, okay? Now, can't believe I forgot to do this. I wanted to do this before I got into the ES. I apologize, guys, but there are some big numbers coming out this week. Huge catalyst. Like, these are economic numbers that will most likely, I don't want to say will for sure, but highly likely cause a directional move in one direction or the other, right? And that is on Tuesday, you have the CPI. And if you guys don't understand where I'm getting, this is Market Watch, an economic calendar for the week coming, right? And it shows you what's coming for the whole week, okay? The ones that matter for me this week, CPI, it's going to be a big one on Tuesday morning, okay? And it's pre-market. So you're going to kind of get an idea of what the market thinks prior to the bell ringing. Wednesday, we have the Fed announcement on the rates, right? That happens at 2 p.m. So the market's open. So make sure you're watching your positions heading into that. But also make sure you understand that these are looming events. People know this is coming. So the way I typically trade is based off emotional moves into levels. I absolutely love Monday morning when we have CPI the next day. Why? Because any gigantic move up or flush down in a single equity has a much higher chance, at least in my opinion, of having a successful mean reversion trade just based on the fact that, like, let's say there's a rumor of a buyout, right? Like, we've seen plenty of those lately, right? Manchester United, Coupa, a few of them, right? Let's say there's rumors of a buyout and something just flies and you're buying, it's getting really extended to the upside. Do you want to be holding that when you bought at a premium to like it was just trading at maybe 10-15 minutes prior? You want to be holding this position heading into the CPI numbers pre-market the next morning, when you kind of just chase this price action up. So any emotional move Monday morning is something that I really look forward to trying to take the reversal of. And it's just for a day trade, but it's just using the fact that we know these numbers are looming on the horizon and that people don't typically want to head into those numbers off sides, right? A lot of people kind of want to just be like neutral, hands off a little bit, or maybe just, they might have smaller than usual positions. People aren't typically trying to get too gung-ho prior to those numbers, right? It's the same thing as like buying some huge position of a stock right before the market closes and they're about to report earnings. I hope that makes sense, right? So what I'm illustrating on the chart here very well could be caused by the numbers, right? Whether the market likes or doesn't like the CPI, this may or may not trigger. If they like it, right? If the market thinks we're going higher based on whatever those numbers are, we may see a retest up here. The highs from, was it last week's highs or 2 weeks ago, I believe, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so that was not last week, but the week before's highs. We may see a quick retest of those levels. We may see it breached, right? But keep in mind, so far we're still in a bear market. So when I see breakouts, like, let me just draw it so you guys can see it. If we push up here and break this level, it doesn't mean that I get super bullish either. Because in bear markets, one of the things I see happen the most is the breakout buyers get punished, like absolutely just taken to the woodshed. And that's because they think we're going higher, they forget we're in a bear market, and everybody is selling because they're taking advantage of this big move, this rally up in the middle of a bear market right into really strong resistance. Okay, so even if we break 2 weeks ago's highs, I don't become super bullish. And in fact, I would start looking for that to become a failed breakout. If they don't like the numbers, you may see it end up triggering right here under this level and send us tumbling, okay? And if that happens, what I'm doing immediately on the break of these levels that I'm drawing here, hopefully you guys see these levels, right? This last week's lows, okay? Last week's lows, the break of last week's lows. If we trigger those, I'm looking to short pops back into resistance levels, even considering last week's lows as the first spot, okay? The next level up from there where I would look to get short would be this level here. which is, we'll just call it 39.50. So that's enough of like the bigger picture talk. I'm gonna drill down into an hourly. Let's look at an hourly. I'll drill down into an hourly, and we can start to identify the support and resistance levels for the week. Remember, with all these economic, like with the CPI and the Fed announcement coming, we should probably plan for levels a little further out than what we typically do. But remember, Monday is kind of one of those things where any kind of big moves into levels, I'm there for the reversals. So as far as support goes, if we open flat to / gapped up a bit, I'm looking at that 39.50 as the first spot. Below that, 39, we'll call it 39.10. It's actually a little higher. It's like 39.15. Okay. Below that, I like the 50-day lining up with that quarterly pivot and that monthly pivot right around 38.50. And then, and what's funny, guys, is I don't have to do a whole lot of work, because a lot of these levels are just marked out, and they haven't been retested since I marked these levels, right? Like this level down here, 37, let's just call it 37.20, okay, has not been retested since I marked it. So if we just keep going higher and higher and higher, eventually the first test of that, if we flush down into those levels really hard, that to me is going to be a no-brainer. Let's use that as a level of interest and see if support shows up. So obviously that quarterly pivot, 50-day monthly pivot also lines up really nice with this level that I've also had drawn out, which you can see has had multiple times where it's acted as important levels. So below this 37.20 area is going to be 36.50, 36.40-ish. Okay, and then that was all the support I'm really caring about. Obviously, we have those lows down there around 3,500, but let's look at some resistance. If we open flat to / gap down a bit, first level I'm looking at is going to be 4,000. 4,000 is that psychological level. It's also the annual pivot. It's also really close to the 200-day at the moment. I would probably use that as like a range, right? Between 4,000 and the 200-day, because that 40-40 area has also been resistance quite a few times, right? You can see right there. And then above that, we have the, let's see, what the highs from December 1st. So it was 2 weeks ago's highs. Remember, we talked about that. It wasn't last week, but it was the week before that's highs. Above that, I'm going to be looking around 41.75. We'll call it 41.75. And then 42.50. All right. So that's the support resistance levels I'm looking at for the ES. I'll take a quick look at the NQ and see if there's anything I see that stands out that makes me feel like I need to make a note about it versus the ES. Let's see here. Honestly, the one thing I do notice is that not last week, but the week before, really did try to break out a bit, and it turned immediately into a failed breakout, right? You see that? I'd be watching. I would say I'd be watching for that to continue lower, but the thing is you have all these weekly tails down here under these weekly candles. Yeah, what I will say is this, is the trend is changing, just like what we said with the ES, okay? If this turns into a lower high here and then we break last week's lows, I think it does come lower then. Just based on the daily chart, right? And the failed breakout. But really what I look for is when we're in an uptrend and we're making higher lows and higher highs, when we get that failed breakout and then we lose the previous higher low, which was right here. You see that? This was your previous higher low. When we lose that and immediately put in a lower high, that's where I really start to see a trend change for those failed breakouts. So just something to note on the NQ right there. Let me get rid of some of these lines because I'm an OCD guy. Let me look at Bitcoin real fast for all you crypto crazies. Still just range bound. I mean, literally range getting really tight. Exactly what I said last week still going to apply. I'm not going to change anything I said from last week. If you want to know my thoughts on Bitcoin, go watch last week's Sunday Prep, just to keep it short and sweet. Now let's look at the ETFs because, in fact, let's go to the bar chart real fast and check out the sector matrix. Oh man, and I remember we talked about energy and oil really looking weak underneath the daily 20. Those things really unwound last week. But if you remember, what I said was, if you zoom out to a higher time frame chart, like a weekly, you'll realize that they're going to be coming into some really, really strong levels of support. And those are the levels where if I'm trying to get long energy and oil, even, and now we are kind of going to talk more about longer term stuff instead of day trades, right? Not day trades, but more like 3 to 5 to maybe even 6 or 7 day swings. Because actually, if you are a long only and swing position trader, energy and oil is really one of the few games in town, right? Because they've been in these secular bull markets while everything else is in a bear market. So I guess if that's your thing, these are the levels where you're either adding to positions or you're starting new positions and letting them work. And we'll talk about that when we look at the XOP and the XLE. Let's see. Communications was really weak, got smoked, and discretionary. Everything else, was red weak. Not a single sector out of these main ones, right, was green. Relative strength, utilities, right? So we'll take a look at that as well. So let's go ahead and I think I've shown you guys this before, but I have this is 8 of my more commonly traded sectors, right? These are the ETFs. And these are just these are 2-hour charts, okay? 120-minute charts. And what I do is I use these as visual guides. I look at them and I quickly just say, like, first glance, what do I see? Do I see an uptrend? Do I see sideways action? Do I see a downtrend? I'm not really trying to get very granular on it. I'm just trying to be like, guideline, quick look, first glance, uptrend, downtrend, sideways. Then I can start drilling into it, right? So I have this, and what I do is I frequently look at these. But what I want to do while we go through these ETFs is I will kind of drill into the 2-hour on each of them. So XRT, this is retail. Remember, we talked about that if this reclaimed this 67, 70 area and started holding, making higher lows, it could get that secondary squeeze. It did not, right? Instead, we actually lost some levels. We're stuffing underneath the 20-day. So quick look at the 2-hour. And change it to a 2-hour, sorry. All right. Again, keep in mind what we just talked about, right? Where you get that kind of failed breakout, and the very next thing it does is loses the last higher low, okay? Here's your higher low from when it was trending up, and then it loses it. And then now we're stuffing and making lower highs. So what I would like to see is this attempt to kind of regain its feet underneath itself. How would it do that? Like this, okay? The pullback, the push up, the higher low right here, and then a break above this level here, okay? Actually, I drew that a little bit wrong. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. Here's the level it would need to get above, okay? So your lows, your push up, your higher low, and then the break above this would be the attempt to regain its composure and head higher. That is the move. That move right there is the move that I look to see fail. Meaning, what do I mean by fail? Mean it doesn't get up to these highs and instead rolls over. Because if that happens, now the trend has changed and now I'm looking to short pops, okay? Simple as that. And that's why I kind of wanted to point out some of these 2-hour charts, all right? So that was XRT. And really, like, the way it's acting, if it gets above 66, it's kind of like, let's wait and see. If it doesn't, if it pops into the 65, 60s, like underneath the 20-day and starts stuffing, and then starts to look heavy again, I think it does present short opportunities. Flushes, the areas I would be looking to buy, maybe the 50-day because it lines up with that quarterly, okay? XLF, another one that was looking really good, but what happened? Failed breakout. Remember this. So here was the breakout. Where was the last higher low it made? It was right here. So we already broke it. So what needs to happen now is for us, I want to see this thing try to regain its composure. I want to see it try to push up and make a lower high. And then the break of this level here becomes your confirmation that that trend has changed, because this was in an uptrend, right? And it was looking really strong. And even if the trend changes and we start shorting pops, doesn't mean that this thing can't go higher. It just means that it needs to have a pullback, a deeper pullback than what it's put in so far. And just the same on the same coin, opposite side is it could regain its composure, right? It could push up, get a higher low, and then push, and we could start traveling higher again. You have to be able to read what the author is writing, and that's what I'm talking about. If you don't understand what I mean when I say what the author is writing, you need to check out TrueTrader, because that's where we get into those granular things and talk about how to read what price is trying to tell you and how time frames do that dance together. Because honest to God, I feel like people that trade not fully understanding that are really trading blindfolded. XLRE. So I'm going to quit going into the 2-hour charts. I just wanted to do it for a few and show you guys. Another one where, you know, we really did stuff, failed breakout, starting to look like we're putting in a lower high here. Interested to see, does it roll over from here? A lot of these things starting to look weak. Let's see. This one still looks great. XLV, this is the healthcare sector. Trending very well. Hasn't even got back to the 20-day yet, right? Doesn't mean it can't. Could easily come down here, make a lower high. Things can change. But until it does, no reason to fight this short. I would not be shorting this sector unless it gets extended up into these kind of areas up here, okay? I feel like John Madden drawing up plays over here. All right, enough of me being goof, right? Materials, failed breakout, right? Was trading above these levels, has now stuffed back under, and Friday's price action makes me think this is gonna come back in lower. If it does, I might look to short pops. XLI, I believe, was the same. Yep, remember we talked about this. We got above these levels, but we weren't able to hold above them. Now we're back below the 20-day, lower highs. Let's see if this thing either tries to get its footing, tries to push again and fails, or it just starts to roll over from here, and then maybe we can short pops. But a lot of these names where they started to have these failed breakouts, the areas where I'd feel good longing them are quite a bit lower, right? The last time this thing had like a consolidation where it pushed, obviously it had this area where we're at now, right? But we had this area here, and it kind of broke out from right here. So anywhere down into here, which is, you're going to put you into that 95, which is that quarterly pivot, and you have all these moving averages converging, right? You have the 200-day, the 50-day, the weekly 20, okay? All right in that 94 something area, 94 to 95, okay? That's going to be the first area where I feel safe to possibly see if we get higher lows and would I want to be long. But way up here and we start to fail like that, the longs are, the areas where I want to long are well below us, and so I'm not really looking at longs. XLU, this is the one that had the relative strength based on the fact that it didn't have a huge red week, right? But remember, this is why it's important to kind of look under the hood. It still had the failed breakout, still looks like it's putting in a lower high. We are still above the 20-day, but it still could fail. We still could have the breakdown right here, because technically I need to get rid of some of, move that out of there so it's not blinding everybody. These are only supposed to be on the weekly, I believe. Hold on. Whoops. Apologize, guys. Just don't want these on the daily chart because they're just for the weekly. And if you see the weekly, you'll understand, right? The weekly, it shows you the low and then the first higher low, okay? That's it. I don't want them on my daily charts. But what we have here is you have, let me see if I can draw some circles. You technically have Actually, you know what? It's not quite, because this didn't make, this was your low, okay? So what would need to happen, where's my drawing tool? There it is. This pullback here would need to make a higher low here. And from there, if it breaks above this level, that would be your long trigger to continue this trend. But again, this is right into those areas where I'm highly expecting to see this fail up here. And if it doesn't, then I probably don't want to really be a part of this. If this doesn't make a major lower high here, you know, meaning this your high, if this doesn't end up putting in a lower high somewhere, if this wants to come back up to highs, remember we talked about this last week, that's what I consider megaphone price action. I don't like it. And I would not want, basically all names in the utility sector would be something I don't look to trade unless things got really blown out and there was a overbought reversion setup. You know what, I'll just leave that circle there. We'll see if we get up into those levels. But this is the levels where I expect to see it fail. Why? Because this was a really key level and we had that failed breakout, came back under it. Now we're right into the underside of it. And that's the weekly 20 and the weekly 50. Like, honestly, this is for me where I expect this to fail, and we need to make a lower high. How do we make a lower high? By breaking last week's highs without breaking 2 weeks ago's highs. And that, if that confuses you, check me out over at TrueTrader.net. We'll get you squared away. Not going to spend any more time on it. XLP, this one is right into some resistance where this very well could be the spot as well on this one. It's still above the 20-day, but I would like to see a long trigger fail and then look to short pops on this stuff too. XLY, this is the one, relative weakness, the fact that like even when things were rallying, this couldn't. Same with communications, we'll look at that in a minute. Still think this one's short on pops, okay? Maybe you would long down in the 132.50 areas, but I feel like if we come down there, we may end up rolling over and getting another major leg down. And I don't want to be buying something if we're about to have the floor fall out from us. Communications, another one, short all pops, just like we were saying for the last few weeks. Could have done it right there into that resistance. I mean, it's just such a weak sector. This one, XBI, we are testing a pretty important level. It's not like it's make or break, because remember, trend lines to me aren't like the end of the world or anything. What matters to me is trends. So where was the last major higher low? For me, it was this area here, okay? So as long as we're above that, we can break this trend line and still kind of have this work. This is where I want to see us hold above. I don't want to see us get below this level. Now, if we just dip below and quickly reclaim, it could become a failed breakdown. But again, I don't want to see us below that level. If we break below that level, I might start to look to short pops back into resistance. Again, a lot of everything. The whole market right now is going to be hinging on the CPI and the Fed announcement. XLK, another one with the failed breakout. Notice that failed breakout. Broke above resistance and it came right back under. Lost the last major higher low right there. And now we're looking like we're working on a lower high here on the underside of the 20-day. This could easily roll over and give us some more downside as well. Again, even though these can just roll over, what I would rather see is a long setup that fails. If the long sets up and fails, that's where the big shorts come in, okay? Energy and oil. Now, let's look at these. Remember, we talked about, you have to remember, when we talked about this last week, let's see, where was this? 1, 2, 3, 4. This is where we were. This is what we were looking at last week. What did we say we were seeing? We were seeing just the fact that it kept stuffing, and now we're below the 20-day, and it was having trouble. That's what it amounted to. And now it's extended to the downside. So it doesn't mean that we get super bearish on it. The time to be bearish was up here. This is where we start looking for the longs. Now remember, we talk about the weeklies. Right into the weekly 20. We may come even lower. We have this trend line here that's been holding like magic, this whole uptrend, right? So there's no reason to not acknowledge it, at least. Even if you don't believe in trend lines. I mean, when it holds this well on these higher time frames, we got to at least acknowledge it, okay? first level I'd be looking at is where we're currently at. Okay, so energy and oil should already have your attention. It doesn't mean it's ready, but if it starts to make higher lows and the daily starts to look like we're getting some support, there could be some trades. I'd like to see us come down to the 200-day, that 80 area, which you can see was, you see where that level came from? That was way back, right? That was back in 2017 and 18. So I would like to see that kind of get tested. So we'll call 79 to 80. That's where I'm looking at on energy. And then oil, it's not really too different, right? Right into this trend line would be nice, this 125 to 126 area. And if we look at the weekly, you'll see another one that's just been holding really well this whole way up, okay? So we'll see what it gives. Energy and oil is, even if you're not bullish, and I don't know why you wouldn't be. It's been in an uptrend. Maybe you got burnt on the short side, and so you hate it, and so you can't stand that sector, and so you're forever bearish it. So be it. Even if you're bearish, you have to look at this and go, it's getting oversold. And even for just short-term bounce day trades, there should be plenty of things on your radar right now. I can already tell that this Sunday prep's going to be going over my time, but it's all right, guys. I kind of wanted to make sure we hammered those ideas home. So let's get right into the actual ideas now. We're going to look at the long setups. The first section is strong stocks looking for continuation. The first name on my list is MDB. Had earnings last week, had a nice earnings gap up. It gave the fade, but if you look at what it did on the fade, it reclaimed quite a bit of it, and it actually didn't close too bad that day. And then the next day gapped up, retested the closing price, held, and then got a second day continuation higher. And then we kind of had a little bit of a failed breakout on Friday, but I still think that if we retest 186.50 to 187 on a flush tomorrow morning, I think it's good for a bounce play. The question will be, what's the liquidity like? Because it's already kind of getting back into the levels that it traded prior to the earnings. It's still tradable. The only way I'll trade it, though, is in the first 30 minutes, because that's where it's going to have a little bit more liquidity than it does throughout the rest of the day. So that price discovery phase, I'm all over it. If it flushes 186.50 to 187, I'm looking to scoop this. Keep in mind that that level might be a bit close because the thing has a 13-point range. Let me look at what it was prior to earnings. Okay, so prior to earnings, it looked like it was trading at about $11.50 ATR. Okay, but still, that the level I'm looking at is only 4 to 5 points away from where we close, right? So it's, for that reason, I'm going to have a pretty tight stop on it. Like if I identify support coming in, I put on a buy. I'm not going to give it a lot of wiggle room because I don't want it to be one of those things that, I buy it when it pulls back 5 points and then it ends up pulling back 10, right? That's not happening for me. So I am watching it, 186.50 to 187. That's the level I like during the first 30 minutes, okay? The next idea is AMAT. And listen, the NVIDIA idea from last week went ape shit, right? But both NVIDIA and a few of these names, right, kind of had that failed breakout look from Friday. NVIDIA was like right off the underside of the 200-day, closed lower than the Thursday's close. So it's looking like a bit of a failed breakout. Will it be? I don't know. We'll see. But AMAT also has sort of that look with that Friday candle. I mean, you guys can, I don't need to draw these lines. You guys can see them pretty easily with the naked eye, but we're getting nice and tight. I like this chart. I'm looking to scoop 104.50-ish. What did I write down? I think 104 to 104.50-ish into that 200-day, into last week's kind of lows for a bounce. But if it gets above 110, I may look to kind of join trend on the name because, one, the whole idea with the failed breakout and not wanting to be a buyer up there is that it's going to roll over on us. But if we get back above Friday's highs, to me that shows that was not a failed breakout, right? Can it put in another candle like that? Of course it can. But manage your risk. Simple as that, okay? So 104, 104.50-ish for a scoop. Above 110, I may look to start buying dips and join trend. The next name on this list is PLD. I like the daily on this name. Just kind of cruising on the 20-day, right? Higher lows, getting nice and tight. What did I want on this? I said basically I want to see it prove first. I don't want to be like, you see this candle here on December 1st, Thursday. It broke above some levels and then it just slammed down, right? I don't want to be in this until it proves, okay? So how does it prove? Over 120, okay? Over 120 starts putting in higher lows, then I look to get involved in this and join trend. Because then we might get one of those big old whoop candles, okay? If you get one of those and you catch it early in the morning, find a nice opening setup, those can pay. Those can be really big days for you. But I don't want to be I don't want to anticipate this and have it roll over on me. I don't want to, I want it to prove first. So over 120, and then I look for it to start holding higher lows. Now, that's it for the strong stocks looking for continuation. Next is oversold reversion setups. And if you remember what we just talked about, that's energy and oil. You can kind of go through the energy and oil names yourselves and see what you like, what's got the liquidity that meets your criteria, what's got the range that meets your criteria. There's two that I'm going to focus on, and that's DINO. Has this big sell-off right into the 200-day. 47.50 is the first area I'm kind of looking at. It's just based on these, right? So this was a failed breakdown right here. Remember, this is like a pullback into the 20-day here. Pulling back, breaks down, and then never has follow-through below that level. So those areas matter to me. It doesn't have to be right on the dot, but that level, 47.75 to 47.50, okay? I'm looking for it to kind of flush out. Now, I see it's off the 200-day. Why don't I want it off the 200-day? Very simple. Look if this is a daily chart, so this takes away all the intraday price action, but what you're not seeing is the fact that we had a whole day of consolidation and an attempt to push higher. So you can see it much better if you zoom in. Here's a 5-minute chart, okay? So right here, we come down, we consolidate, and we attempt to push, and it immediately stuffed, right? To me, that says we're going lower, right? Now, I actually almost feel like 47.50 might be too close after seeing that consolidation, because here's another area right here. Kind of consolidates, attempts to push higher, slams, okay? Consolidates, slams. So I don't want to be too early on it, but I do like these levels. I will probably look to revisit it around 46 if this 47.50 area doesn't work. Again, make sure you're watching XLE and even XOP with this, okay? Don't trade just this chart by itself. Know what the sector's doing. Know if it's relative strength, relative weakness on the individual name compared to the sector, okay? And the other one is PBF. We talked about this the other week, right? And it's doing the exact same thing. If this breaks Wednesday's lows, I think we're coming down here to this 30 area, okay? So 30 is where I want it. The only other thing I might possibly look for is a failed breakdown, which would just be like a quick little poke below Wednesday's lows and then a reclaim, and then see it start making higher lows and looks like it wants to go. Because think about it, right? You buy this thing and everybody is jumping in long because it's oversold, it's at the 200-day, it's starting to consolidate, everybody's getting long. If we just dip below Wednesday's lows, what happens? Everybody pukes, right? All the longs puke. If they all puke and then it starts to reclaims and starts making higher lows, now you're not fighting people for sales. Now, maybe you even get a bunch of shorts that piled in. Now you got shorts covering, and then we can see it move a little bit lighter to the upside. So that I will watch for that. But I do think if we break Wednesday's lows, this thing could just tumble down to 30. So 30 would be where I start to watch it, okay? So that's it for the long setups, guys. So now we're going to get into the short setups. Weak stocks looking for continuation. The first name is BA, and people are like, BA is not weak. I know it's not, guys. I promise you, I know Boeing has not been weak. I'm looking at the last 2 days. Those Thursdays and Fridays candles tell me that this thing is really, really struggling to push higher, okay? That's all this is. It's not a, oh, I hate Boeing type thing, okay? Now, what am I looking for? I'm looking for a break below Thursday's low a day. So Thursday's lows are right around here. Okay, so below let's just call it below 179. Okay, below whatever Thursday's low a day was. Okay, below Thursday's low a day. And actually, I may not have that right because I gotta see it on a daily. Hold on one second, guys. Yeah, let's see. It's 178.61. All right, below 178.61. I think this is gonna go test the 20-day. That's, you know, it maybe even 175. So the 20-day / 175 could be targets. If we break when Thursday's low a day, I'm looking to just short pops back into 179. If 179 doesn't work, I'll look at the next level, which would probably be, let's see, right up in this 180 area. Okay, so we break Thursday's lows. Where's my? I can never find this thing. Okay, come down, break this. I'm looking to short the first pop right back into these areas. Okay, for some continuation down here. That's basically what I'm looking for. Okay, that's Boeing. Moving on. Next idea is CrowdStrike, CRWD. This one, earnings, big sell-off, pushed up, pulled back. I want to see this make a lower high. I'm looking to fade either a pop into 120 with the anticipation that we're going to eventually come down here and break this level, which was Wednesday's lows, or if we break Wednesday's lows, I'm shorting pops back into resistance because I think this thing's going 100. Okay. I mean, remember when this was selling off? We talked about this as I don't know how many weeks ago this was, right? Like 3-4 weeks ago. We talked about this in the Sunday prep as a possible oversold reversion setup because it was flushing out. We had this level and we had this level. And this was the level I really wanted. We may still be going down there, okay? It bounced from here right into the 20-day. What did it do? Look at this, guys. What did it do? Right into the 20-day, lower high, and then the break of this level and what? Plummet, right? Like, these are the setups, guys, that I hope these make sense to you. Because this is exactly what I was just showing you on the ES. What would need to happen on the weekly chart, right? This is the same thing we look for on the inverse, right? If you flip these charts upside down, this is how stocks continue higher as well, right? So please make sure you guys learn how stocks move. Learn how to read what the author is writing. Okay, so that was Crowd. The next idea is Lulu had earnings on Friday. Really negative reaction. I think that this could try to pop off the open and stuff some levels. I'm looking for a pop into 330 to fade and see if it has a bit more downside. That's all. Very simple on that one. 330 to 331. All right, the last section is overbought reversion setups. Okay, this one, this is the one I'm most excited about, and it may not even come to fruition, especially since I'm going to talk about it. But I really like MOMO. This is not a typical move for this chart and this company. Okay, this is getting extreme, getting extended. This is what I love to see, and we were watching it on Friday, guys. You'll see all these things I had drawn on it. It held all these key levels, 880 and 870. It just could not break down. So I am praying that it's chock full of shorts and it's going to squeeze. I want it to gap up tomorrow and possibly get a nice big push off the open. And like I said, I don't know if we get it or not, but I've got to make sure it's on my radar. The first step to catching big moves is to be looking or fishing in the right spot, right? So what am I looking for? 10, 11, 12, like 12 would be amazing. I don't think we get up there, but 11 would be great. We'll see. But with these overbought reversions and with the oversold reversions, it's always higher to better or lower to better. Okay, we really do want this to become as extreme as it can get, so that it's as A+ as possible. Okay, so that's MOMO. Next one is BILI, another Chinese name. Now we had BILI on, was it last week? I don't know if it was last week or not. We were looking at this 120 or this 23 to 24 level. Gave a beautiful fade. Now we're back above it. So what do you think my plan is, guys? Very simple. Exact same thing when I was like, okay, this is our first retest of this really big level. Well, what's the next really big level? 30, right? Like, I mean, give or take a few. We got the monthly pivot 29.37. We got that big failed breakout up into the 30.20s. So any push into 30 on BILI Monday morning, fade for me at least. Again, doesn't mean that it's like a guaranteed thing or whatever. I will easily, just as easily as I will let the trade work and take my win. If it doesn't work, I'll just as easily cut it and take my loss, guys. Make sure you guys manage your risk. And the last idea on the prep this week is Netflix. Whoops. And I put it in this, I don't know why I put it in the overbought reversion. It's a failed breakout. That's all this is, okay? We had a big push on Friday, stuffed that 330 area. I'm looking to short a pop into 328, the monthly pivot, versus Friday's high day, over under, okay? And I think this can come back, you can get 312, maybe even back to the 20-day. I don't know. But it's for a day trade, okay? So if we spike off the open, I'm looking to fade 328 with risk over Friday's high day. If we gap down, I just as easily don't mind shorting a pop right back into some of the levels from Friday. So like, let's say we open 314, 315, anywhere in there, probably look to fade any spike right back into the closing price. What we call a gap to close over at TrueTrader, right? So open 315, 316, even, maybe 316 and lower is really where I would like to short a pop into 320. Any closer to that, and it's not extended enough for me when it moves into that level. But even if we open 318 and then we push up here into 325, I'll be all over that. Okay, so I'm looking to fade Netflix tomorrow. So those are the ideas. I'm going to quickly see if there's any questions, because I know this one, I feel like this one dragged on, guys, and I apologize for that. Let's see. All right, Josh says, you versus you post was good on Twitter, Ricky. You and I know that's something I personally struggle with, along with many, I'm sure. Can you speak more to that next week? Yeah, I could definitely do that. I mean, the gym has so many correlations to trading, and so does any kind of sport or physical activity where you have to push yourself. But you versus you is like literally what we do every day in the markets, right? And so it's a big focal point of mine in every aspect of my life. I'll think if I can. I'll try to put something together for next week on that. Thank you, Josh. Cruz is saying quarterly option expiration this week. A lot of gamma expiring will free up movement into next week. Awesome. Yeah, Cruz, if you guys don't know, is New Age Wall Street, and he's a genius with the option stuff. So that stuff's like, I know what options expiration is. I know that OpEx means that. I'm not sure if is it a witching? Is it a quad witching or a triple witching? I'm not sure if it is. I haven't looked into that at all, which means that there's other things that expire at the same time, right, guys? Dan Kircher is asking, INTU, is it ready to break out? Let's take a look at INTU. It's definitely getting tight. And as far as, what I think would need to happen, right? Let's look at a higher time frame first. We always need to do that. So the time frame in control right now is your weekly, right? We pushed into the weekly, had a short continuation trigger. We have not gotten down to the lows from that short continuation trigger. And by short continuation trigger, what I'm looking at is right here, where we push up, lower high, and then the break of these lows, right? That should get us back down to these lows, and it hasn't. So really what would need to happen, and in fact, actually the monthly's kind of in control as well. You can see that push up was into the monthly 20. But what really needs to happen is we need to get above these levels. And I know that we're at a really high time frame right now looking at this, and that's a really far ways away. But everything in between that is kind of just chopping around, because higher time frames have taken control, right? We're not extended from the weekly 20. We are kind of extended from the monthly, but at one point we weren't, right? We had retested the underside of the monthly 20. Let me get rid of these white lines. So can't see them in this monthly. There we go. All right. Yeah, so really, we do need to look at this and ask, like, okay, what would need to happen for this to resume its uptrend? Because right now, we're in a downtrend on all time frames. Let me go back to the weekly, make sure. Yeah, all the time frames are in a downtrend except the monthly, right? The monthly is still technically in an uptrend and could just as easily have this pull back into the monthly 20, push up, higher low, and then the break up here would send us, okay? And that's how you would resume the uptrend. Prior to that, it's noise, right? We're gonna chop around a lot. Now, and a lot of people struggle with this. They're like, well, isn't there trades in between that? Because there's so much room. Like, we're looking at a weekly chart. Things at 400, and you're talking about waiting for it to trigger over 500, that's 100 points away. Are there trades in between? Yes, there can be. But you still need to wait for directional bias. You need to wait for something to tell you that it's going and give you something to risk against. And right now, I just drew this for like a visual guideline, right? Right now, on a daily chart, where's my circles? Here's your recent low. This is the push up. This was the pullback, okay? That was your higher low. This was your trigger on the daily chart, okay? It triggered it and immediately sold off, right? So I don't know if this is just gonna stuff here, put in a lower high and roll over. The only way I would feel safe touching this to the long side is if we reclaimed above where that failed breakout happened and start to retest and hold this 415, 416 area. If that happens, then I could see it pushing, but again, it's going to run into some really nearby resistance up here in the 430s. And again, you know, until we get above 500, this weekly time frame can remain in control and we could still continue lower. Hope that makes sense. Javier says, thoughts on Airbnb? As far as I remember last week, it was a trailer fire or a trash dumpster fire. Speaking of, I don't know where that patch went. My kids, my son brought this home. I keep it on my desk now. It cracks me up. It's a patch for like a backpack or a jacket or something. But it's literally a dumpster fire floating down a river. And I was like, dude, that is so like the stock market, and especially in the small caps, right? So far it looks like a failed breakdown. Like, I know Javier knows what I'm talking about when I say this, but like, just like we talk about the failed breakouts, right? Like, this thing got above these, when I say above these highs, actually did it? It may not have. What was the low here? I'm going to uninverse this. Hold on one second, guys. Maybe it didn't break the lows. What was the low? 86.88? 86.75. No, it didn't. Okay. So it wasn't really a failed breakdown in terms of these levels. Definitely could have been in terms of these lows here, right? Which you break, we get the quick reclaim. What you'd look for on, what I would look for on Airbnb is a pullback here to make a higher low. If that happens and then we start to push again, I could see it being a wall. Now, let me reread the question. I bet he's asking me about a short, so I should probably shut up, right? Yep, short at 99 or 100. The reason I don't know about that is because the fact that it may have just been a failed breakdown. Tesla reminds me of that, right? Tesla was, we talked about this right here, the pull, the reclaim real quick, and then the higher low, and then it ripped. So yes, it gave a great short. I mean, honestly, Javier, you and me both know that you know how to manage your risk. And for you guys that don't know, Javier is a member of TrueTrader, and he's a great trader. Something rips up into those levels, right? It's the 20-day psychological level, recent resistance. You can put the trade on and manage your risk. I think it's a good trade. Even if it's a good trade, it doesn't mean it's going to work. But as long as you manage your risk and you have a plan, I think you're fine. I like the 102 level a bit better. And if you look at where Tesla stuffed on the same setup, it was that same type of level, right? So let me draw a line from here to there, right? That 102 area. And if you look at Tesla, that's where it stuffed. Fail breakdown, reclaim, and then it stuffed that same level, okay? So that's kind of the thoughts there on Airbnb. Dan says, FXI in continued uptrend. I see possible 30.90. I don't even know what FXI is. Let me go look. Oh, China. Yeah, China's been really strong lately. And if anybody remembers, like the day it had the capitulation day, this day here, it never downticked another day after that, right? Like look at all the names. They all had that puke day, and then they've just been up, up, up. So that's what happens, right? Like this was a pain trade. There was a lot of people just adding as it came lower, lower, lower until they hit their breaking point. And this day here where you got that snap, that was everybody tapping out. And it's been up, up, up the way. And I'm not gonna lie, I had BABA in my SEP IRA, and I was part of that. I tapped out at the low, not at the lows, but damn near, right? Like in the 62s, and it went to 58, and then it's been up, up, and away, right? So it sucks, but you're 100% right. It's been in this continual uptrend, and just let the trend pay you. But make sure you also understand that that's just the daily chart, okay? And if you zoom out, this is still in a downtrend on all the higher time frames, okay? Let's see what else we got. Steve Hilson, quad witching days happen 4 times per year in March, June, September, and December. Yeah, but when is December's? December 16th? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So that means this week is quad witching. I really appreciate that, Steve. And then Ray says, is GLD about to break out? I've seen a lot of chatter about it on Twitter over the weekend. Could. I mean, obviously we have this level here it's flirting with. I don't trade this stuff. But it's bumping its head. We'll see. It would need to reclaim that level and then start to hold higher lows for me. But again, I don't trade that stuff. All right, guys. I am going to wrap it up there. I know this one went well over what we typically do. I think, at least I think, right? Usually I go about an hour and 15 minutes. We'll see when I get done how long this one went. But as always, guys, check us out over at TrueTrader.net. If you don't understand the stuff I'm talking about, like understanding the way stocks move is the most important thing you can do if you want to be involved in the markets. And that doesn't matter. Day trader, position trader, swing trader, hedge fund manager, I don't care who you are. If you're involved in the markets, you have to understand how stocks move. If you don't understand, I'll show you over at TrueTrader.net. If not, I'll see you in the markets tomorrow. I hope it's not your money I'm taking. Peace.